Because I created this painting, Speak Your Truth, we're going to talk about why speaking your truth is important. Speaking your truth would involve speaking up for yourself, what you believe in, maybe speaking up for somebody else. But speak your truth, like in the painting, you want to be bold with courage like the lion, but you want to be tactful and have some type of grace like the flowers. And it is very apparent these days when people speak what they believe in, it doesn't seem like people care to have a conversation or to understand each other. They just say what they want to say, and it's so sharp and cutting and doesn't seem to do a lot of good. Of course, there's times and places where maybe that is appropriate, but speaking your truth, I feel, should be done with some type of mindfulness. If you really want somebody to hear you or get through to somebody, you have to speak in a way that they can understand and receive. Again, sometimes we are just setting a very strong boundary. We're not trying to connect with somebody and bond or whatever, and maybe we're speaking to have a cutoff from someone. The biggest thing about speaking your truth is probably for those of you that are people pleasers, and I used to be a horrible chronic people pleaser. I hated telling people no or speaking up for myself or setting a boundary. I feel when you speak your truth, you're more likely to have healthy relationships, people will respect you more, and you probably will live life more joyfully because you won't have bitter resentment. When you don't say things that need to be said because you're so afraid of confrontation, you generally will just stuff down what you're truly thinking, maybe agree to things you don't want to agree to, and build up resentment towards somebody. If that resentment keeps building up, it can get to the point where it completely crumbles and might be irreversible. Whereas if you're willing to just speak up and say the truth from the beginning of what you may want or not want, people know when you say something you mean it. There's more trust that's built, hopefully between both of you, especially if they do the same. And you won't have resentment. You can just enjoy life and not hate somebody because you weren't willing to speak up for yourself. Now, why this takes courage sometimes, especially if you're a people pleaser, I want to tell my own personal story without going into too much detail because I don't want to expose this friend's life. There was a situation with a friend where they were kind of in a messy situation, and they told me and a few other close friends what was going on. They also told me kind of the direction they wanted to go. And they were very open to hearing my opinions or advice or feedback or whatever. So I gave it. And I gave a not very popular opinion. I basically told her the truth on if you choose that path, you're not gonna be happy and things are gonna get more ugly. I didn't say it in a mean way or anything, but sometimes just hearing the truth can be hard. She received it well and everything. Then later I heard that she told her other friends, they didn't really have opinions or anything. They just kind of were like, oh yeah, you should do whatever's best for you. And sometimes that's nice to hear. And if you're not close to somebody, maybe that's an appropriate response. But when you're confiding in your best friends and you know each other's lives well, I think that's when it's appropriate to give supportive advice maybe that they don't want to hear. So anyways, they just basically said, they supported her idea and oh yeah, that's gonna be great, blah blah blah. I remember when I heard about it, something in me almost wanted to backtrack on the things that I had said because it was such a stark difference on what I said versus her other friends. And it made her friends look so nice, and I felt like I looked mean. I almost wanted to be like, no, yeah, you know what? You should do what you want to do, and I think everything's gonna be great for you, blah, blah, blah. Or say something more nice and fluffy and kind of join their sides just so maybe I could be more liked, I guess, would be the reason I would want to do that. It was kind of tempting because I didn't like the feeling of I'm the mean friend, even though she wasn't on bad terms with me. Those were just all thoughts I was thinking. And I thought, no, I need to stay true to who I am, what I believe. And I think over time, light will shine on the situation she's going through. And anyone who's willing to tell you what they actually believe, you generally have more respect for. So I just decided, whatever happens, happens, but it's really important for me to stay true to myself and not just join what other people are saying and things I don't even believe in. So fast forward a couple months, and she realized the situation was just so bad. And she got away from everything that was happening. And she came back to me, and I don't remember her exact words, but it was basically like she felt like I was her only friend who was willing to tell her the truth. And she wasn't wanting to see the situation that was happening because it was so ugly. She was almost like gaslighting herself or blinding herself to it. And yeah, she was like, what the heck? All my other friends just said something nice. And Grace was the only one who was willing to tell me what was truly going on and what might happen down the road. And she was willing to be very real with me. And she told me she respected me so much for doing that. And she felt like it deepened her trust in our friendship, and that I was one of the few friends she could trust fully. And I thought, wow, so what would have happened if I would have backtracked and said all these fluffy things? I would have just succumbed to people pleasing and being nice, but it's not supportive to people. Sometimes people need to hear the hard truth. And of course, you always want to say it tactfully. You don't want to just say things so harsh that it hurts people and they shut you out and things like that. But it's so important to at least once tell somebody the truth, assuming you're close to them, assuming you know their life well. I don't think it's appropriate to start giving all these opinions and advice on somebody's life that you know nothing about. If you want to give advice, sit down with a person, get to know them, get to know their story, really understand where they've been, where they're trying to go, and then give your advice accordingly to the information you received. That being said, in other situations where you would speak your truth, in setting boundaries, if somebody is trying to push you to do things you don't want to do, you have to speak up for yourself or you will have resentment. I like how Brené Brown has a saying that says, choose discomfort over resentment. When somebody approaches you or asks you a question of something you don't want to do, and it almost feels rude to say no, you have to choose discomfort in the moment by saying no to avoid resentment in the future. Otherwise, you're choosing comfort in the moment, but you're actually more uncomfortable in the long run because now you feel so bitter towards this person. You are a strong people pleaser. This might feel really scary to do, to speak your truth and speak up for yourself, but the more you practice it, the less scary it will feel. And you will be very surprised at how freeing it is, how much more energy you have, how much more joy you have, how much more respect people have for you. I remember the first time I started practicing saying no, and I was terrified people were gonna hate me. But what happened? I would keep it simple. No, I can't do that. And they would say, okay. Oh, and that was it. And maybe you have somebody way more pushy in your life, but that was generally what would happen. And then I found, oh, people don't hate me. And they started respecting me way more. A lot of healthy things came out of it. Obviously, speaking your truth is not a new concept. I hope this can just be a really nice reminder that it's so important to speak up for yourself, speak up for those that you care about. And yeah, even when it feels scary, to stand in your beliefs, because it will make you have more self-respect and others will have more respect for you, again, if you're doing it with the right intentions and you're being mindful to speak tactfully in a way that is respectful, gains respect. So that is the message of my painting, Speak Your Truth, and I hope it encourages you to feel like you can speak your truth more often.